Hello, I'm Carl Pitera. I'm a program manager for Azure Mobile Engagement, and I'm going to talk to you today about 4 real use cases our customers do with mobile engagement to improve their mobile app users' engagement and retention. So mobile engagement is an Azure service that is focused around analytics and mobile engagement within the galaxy of all the other services. So before we start with the 4 scenario, what is exactly mobile engagement? So the objective of mobile engagement is to improve retention and mobile app usage from your users. So it's built on 4 main pillars. The first one, to manage on a cross-platform basis all platforms and types of audiences for your mobile application, with a very strong emphasis on personalization. The objective is to really have one-to-one communication with your users and make sure that we reach the right person at the right time. The objectives, as I mentioned earlier, is to boost usage and retention and make sure users are happy and come back. And this usually translates into better monetization, whether in dollars or actual objectives of the application. So how do we do that? Mobile engagement is a SaaS platform that is going to use several types of features. The first one, analytics. So we allow you to collect a lot of data about what users are doing within your app to make sure that you understand who your users are, what they are doing within the application, so that you can segment and make sure that you engage and talk with users from specific segments with similar usages. The way the communication done is through push notification and in-app messaging, and this is how you will be able to engage your user in a mobile way in a very instant way. Our platform also features a number of APIs, open APIs, that will allow you to truly drive it not only through a UI, but also programmatically, integrate it with other systems like content management systems or other CRM tools. And of course, being part of the Azure family, it features the standard Azure promise with regards to data protection and privacy. So now that you have understood what mobile engagement is, let's dive into these scenarios. And again, these are scenarios that our customers do, which have proven benefits in improving usage and retention. So the first scenario I wanted to discuss today is the welcome scenario. So this can be annoying for user, but it can also be extremely powerful. And what we try to do today is an example of a win-win situation in an application that wants to leverage authenticating its users. I used an example of Facebook, but there are many ways to authenticate users, and this is really what we are trying to have our users do. So how are we going to let our users know that they can log in and what the value it is? It's through the first contact. So the first time you are going to interact with them will be that welcome. The objective is to really anchor that scenario in a win-win situation where your customers will get value out of that scenario, but you also get a lot of value from having them do that. Typically, authentication brings value to both users. And the demonstration of the value needs to be done during that conversation, during the message that you exchange, and to the people who are the target for these messages. So the way we are going to do it, and I'll show it slightly later, is to create a tree-like campaign where, depending on the situation, you will send a different type of message. Objective is to improve for you the authentication of your users and get to know them better, and for your users to leverage features that they wouldn't have otherwise. So here I took an example of an app that is a typical video on demand type of app, and through the welcome process over the course of 10 days, we are going to send 3 messages depending on the situation of the user. And the objective, again, remember, is for you to demonstrate, to explain to the user what will be the value, and for you as an app owner to get to know your users better. So typically, day one could be, hey, connect so that you can remember where you were with the play of your last video. This is a pretty straightforward example of a value. I'm going to read a video. I'm on a mobile, so I won't have probably time to read it entirely, and I want the position to be remembered. If I'm not authenticated, I cannot do that. If I am, then I can do it. Then, depending on whether the user connected or not, we can, 4 days later, play another scenario. If he didn't connect, we show another aspect of authentication, like the ability to share favorites, and even later, the ability to discover what friends' favorites are, or something like that. And in the event that the user actually connected, we can then suggest other features, like, for example, getting the users to like or not like a video to improve with, for example, Azure Machine Learning recommendations, or things like that. These are typical use cases that can generate a lot of value to the user, but also to you as an app owner. So I wanted to show you how you can do that with mobile engagement. And there we imagine that we actually already have an application with users, and we notice that only a few of these users have actually authenticated. So what we want to do is to make a communication to all the new users and enter into that campaign mode where they will discover little by little these types of features. So we will connect to our engagement portal, which of course you will have as soon as you will have created an app and integrated mobile engagement. And there are other videos in our documentation about how to do that, so feel free to look at them. And there, for the sake of time, I already pre-created some campaigns to play this type of scenario. So this is typically the campaign that will, the push campaign that will play on day one, where the message we are going to send will be what we call a system notification, so a push notification that will appear on the application, explaining the first part of the value that will be delivering through the connection. With mobile engagement, of course, you can choose many options on the user experience and the way you play your notification. Typically, we also encourage you to have landing pages within your app. So typically here, we are encouraging our users to connect. So the best thing to do if they click on the notification is, of course, within your app, to send them to the appropriate page where they actually can sign up or sign in. Then, as I mentioned, the objective is to target only new users, so users who have been with the application only for 1 day. So we want to make sure that through the audience criteria, we only select users who are actually 1 day old within the application. And then this will be as soon as we activate it. And if I click here, for example, as soon as it's activated, it will be automatic. It will play all the time as long as it's up and as long as we don't hit the finish button. So all new users who are 1 day old will, according to that audience definition here, receive that communication automatically. But then what we discussed was that there are next steps in the process. And depending on whether the user actually did or did not connect a few days later, we want to play a different message. So the second part in that campaign will be to address the users who have not logged in 4 days later. Very similar type of user experience, a push notification, communicating another type of value that this feature has. Again, the landing page will be the actual connection. The part that is different here is the audience, so who we are talking to. So first, of course, we want to target only users who were targeted with the previous push campaign. So we want to make sure that it's mobile, so your mobile app users who actually have received the first communication in the sense that they have been pushed for the first communication. The second criteria we want for the audience is people who have not logged in yet. So here I'll explain what that means. Is actually a piece of information that comes from the application. It's what we call a tag or an app info in Azure Mobile Engagement, which is a piece of information letting us know whether the user has logged in or not. And of course, here we want to target users who have not logged in. Again, we mentioned it's users who have been with the app only since 5 days. So that's another audience criteria. And you can see that you can add many audience criteria there. And in the other scenario, we'll see how that goes. So again, you can save, activate this type of campaign, and it will play automatically. The other part is for those other users who actually logged in. So how do we know that? Again, it's in the audience portion of the UI, where we still want to get those users who have been pushed for the first campaign, for the day one campaign, but only the users who did log in. And that's how we will be able to send them another message. And as I showed in the slide, we will let them know the value of liking or not liking specific videos in our app. And for example, the landing page for that particular communication could be looking at their history, the history of the videos they played, so that they can actually like it or not. So this is an example of an app. You can probably reproduce that example within your own app in many different types of examples. Here it was a video. It can be done on e-commerce type of app, media, communication types of app, line of business. Any type of app really can leverage this welcome process with some specific value, with some specific actions that we want the user to take at the very early life of his usage, because this will be a key milestone to make sure that the user stays engaged and stays interested in the app. So that welcome moment is extremely important in the future success of your application. I will just go through very quickly through the other parts of that welcome campaign. So again, we have the campaigns for the day 10, as I showed in the slide. So just a quick reminder that the day 10 has 3 branches after day 5. And if we take, for example, one of the example where we have here a user that actually has connected, but after the 5th day stopped being active. So how does that translate into mobile engagement? Again, we want to make sure that we engage only users who were pushed for the previous campaign, so that we make sure that we don't push other users. And then we also want to make sure that we engage users who are declared as not active. So what does not active mean here? It's a part of our segment feature in mobile engagement, where within mobile engagement, you can define segments through behavior. And here, the segment we have defined is users who have made at least 5 sessions in their lifetime. So we want to select only those users who are extremely active, so who have been making these 5 sessions. And as you might have noticed, and I'll go back to it, in our push campaign, we selected the users who are not active. So we made sure that we engage users who were pushed for the previous campaign and were not active, so that we continue our scenario there. So again, to come back to what we were trying to achieve, a welcome process going through time over the course of 10 days. It can be 30 days, it can be only 5 days, depending on the level of speed of engagement of your application. And you want to make sure that you find that speed depending on the occurrence, the frequency of engagement from your users inside your app. And the very important part is to find a win-win situation where the feature that you want to encourage your user to do benefits both, and where some clear value and benefits can be identified, and then you just create as many branches for that tree as you want. This delivers a lot of value, especially in the long term, making sure that users have a first very good experience with the application. The second example and scenario, which will be much shorter, is boosting your store rating. So as you probably know, it's very, very important to have a great store rating. So 5 stars is the ideal, and making sure that your users who like your app will actually rate the app within the store. What you see usually on the market is after a few days, so hard-coding in the application, that pop-up telling you, hey, do you like us, rate us, and you'll have yes, not now, or don't bother me. So that's okay, but you can probably do much, much better. And the way we've seen our customers doing it is, again, through segmentation. So the objective here is to actually only target promoters that you will detect through their usage of your application. So again, this requires a little bit of research and understanding how your users behave and what make a promoter different from the others, and make sure that the users who like your app will be probably more happy to give you a great rating. We also saw some of our customers who had a very bad experience that they corrected, like a big crash, or a big issue in the communication between the app and their backend or something like that, that created frustration from the users, and that situation was corrected, was properly communicated to the users. And in general, this kind of situation where you go from very bad to actually happy that the user was taken care of is a great opportunity also to get some people to give a great rating for your application. It's also important to be very pushy, meaning that having a very positive message and wording within the notifications. And of course, the best thing you can do to boost your store rating is to improve the app. So how does that work with mobile engagement? And again, in the interest of time, I prepared a scenario here already within our interface. So in that case, we will be again sending a notification to the user, which can be either a push notification or an in-app message. We've seen both, and both really work. But it's important to make sure that you target a moment where you won't annoy the user. So definitely never send a notification or an in-app message when the user is in the middle of purchasing something, or in the middle of a video, or reading an article. That's the best way to get your users annoyed. But if they're in that part of an application where it's not too critical and you're not interrupting an action, that's great. And with mobile engagement, you can definitely do that. We have that feature where you can define on which screens notifications will be triggered. And we call screens activity. So to define on which activities, and you can select with mobile engagement which activities will be the target to display these notifications. So you can not only define who will receive, but when, in the sense of on which screen the communication will happen. And for the store rating, it's extremely important. As I mentioned, very positive message. Make sure that people who are going to move forward with it are people who really want to give you 5 stars. Otherwise, you'd rather not have them go to the store to rate you. The last part, which is actually the most important, is defining the audience. And again, we leveraged that feature in mobile engagement, which is the segments. So the ability to create a group of users who have some characteristics. So let's have a look at what this segment looks like in that definition. So again, it's a set of criteria that users must match in order to be in that segment. So here, for demo purpose, I showed some examples of criteria, but it can be, of course, totally dependent on your application. In that example, which shows users who made 5 sessions, so pretty active users, for example, in the last 10 or 30 days, who visited some specific page, so the pages who show that they are actually engaged and using the application. And for example, again, in our video app scenario, who shared at least 2 times a video. This really shows that these are users who are active, going to certain places, shared some content, etc. So by combining all these factors, we get a segment of a small, even tiny population, and that's totally okay, of users who we are pretty sure that they are promoters and they are people who like your app. And it doesn't matter if you have only a very small number, even 0.5% or 0.1% is more than enough of your population, is more than enough to change dramatically the rating of an app. So feel free to be extremely selective in your criteria and make sure that you get very important people to rate your app. So same mechanism, we define the audience, then we will just activate the campaign and it will run automatically and reach users who enter into that segment as time goes, so that you have a constant flow of promoters over the course of time who will hopefully give you a strong rating. And if that doesn't work, no problem. Next week, as you look at the results in the actual store, if you see that this doesn't work, just change your segments, change your message, and through test and learn, you'll get what works for your app and for your users. So pretty powerful scenario and pretty simple to set up, as you've seen with only one campaign. The third scenario I wanted to share is boosting what we call hidden gems. And we've seen many times customers complaining the fact that they have that small feature, which is just a tiny icon in the app that delivers great value both for the user and for the app owner, but it's underused. So here we've seen several times customers actually creating specific campaigns targeted at specific features. So this is not really a tutorial. It's more about promoting a specific feature, sharing the value with the users to make sure that they use it and they become aware of it. So one also possibility that you can do with mobile engagement is to poll, so to ask questions to your users to understand also why they have not been using it, probably to next time correct your app and, for example, change a bad design or bad UX, or just maybe discover that there is a total lack of interest for that kind of feature, which definitely can happen. So let's have a look at how we do that with mobile engagement, going back to the other example we created for that. So typically, promoting a feature in an app is a good example of an in-app message, so a message that will appear within the app. So to avoid sending that kind of message while the phone is in the pocket or something like that, it's better to engage the user while he's using the app. Again, you can either send that message only when the user is close to that feature, leveraging the same inactivity type of feature we saw earlier. So you could select here inactivity and then select a specific screen where this feature is present, so that you make sure that the communication only happens in that place. So here we took again the example of that video application where there is actually an alarm to make sure so that the user can click on this alarm and be warned when that program or video becomes available or something like that. Why is that interesting? For the user obviously avoid missing a program he wants to watch. For you as an app owner, is definitely measuring the level of engagement of your user for specific shows. There is a huge difference between visiting the page of a program and actually sharing it on social networks, or creating an alarm, because creating an alarm means you really actually, even if you don't watch it, you really meant to watch it. So this is typically some important information, important data that you might want to collect in order to action the data and select these group of users to further communicate with them. So typically, this is again a win-win situation, delivering value both for your users and for you as an app owner. Again, we will use the audience portion of the campaign here to select the group of users that will be targeted with that campaign. So here we have created also a segment called unused feature. So just like before, let's go back to the segments, look at this unused feature segment. And here, that is an event. So typically the click on that tiny alarm icon maybe in the app, saying that, so for all users who have never clicked that button, so have not generated that event, we want to target the campaign to these users specifically. So here, for example, in that app, we'll target this amount of users whenever they are in the screen that has this feature. So that way, you will get some users who will actually click on that alarm, and we typically see usage at least double, and in several times we've seen up to 10x steady usage of the feature after the campaign. So it's really a discovery from the part of the users. I mentioned that alternately you can also create a poll, so a questionnaire where you ask questions to your users about, for example, why they haven't set the alarm. So with mobile engagement, again, you can modify slightly the user experience to transform just that message saying, hey, did you know that there is an alarm, into let us know why you did not use the alarm. Is it because you didn't even know they existed, you never thought of it, not interested, or you didn't know, but now you are going to use it? This is, again, really precious information, and you'll get not only stats about what the users replied to this question, but also you'll be able to use, to leverage that as a new segment for future push campaigns. And this all automatically comes within our SDK, so no specific thing to code from the development perspective. It's all included within the mobile engagement SDK. The last scenario I wanted to share, which is an extremely powerful scenario, especially if the situation has been very bad, is what we call sorry for the crash. So crashes are inevitable within applications. We see those very frequently. And the mobile engagement SDK automatically collects crashes, not so much to measure performance or things like that, but more, again, as a data point to help you engage and communicate with your users and hopefully transform about the experience into a good experience. So the objective here is to communicate to your users who have experienced a bad situation about the fact that you fixed it, potentially even give them something. We've seen more e-commerce type of application or video type application offering something to their users when, for example, the streaming platform was not working, or when a big crash prevented from purchasing or things like that. It's always great to give something to your users. And then you can leverage that moment where you totally transformed an experience. And definitely, since you care about your users, just let them know that you care about them. And by the way, it's extremely powerful to combine that with a store rating because we've seen that users who feel taken care of are more usually happy to give you more stars in the rating. So last part of that demonstration, how we do that with mobile engagement. Again, classically, we created a segment that will select users who had a specific crash a number of times, for example, and then engage them. So let's have a look at how we actually create these segments. So my crash segment. And when you create a segment on mobile engagement, you can define any type of data point that you collect, and you can definitely define crashes or software errors that you properly handled. And then you can select, for example, types of crashes that are being collected. So, for example, you had a big out-of-memory error that you collected. You can define that this is the target of the users that you want to target. You can say, I want to select all the users who, since 30 days to today, have had that crash. And then you select the occurrence at least, let's say, 5 times. Well, 5 is maybe a bit too much, at least 2 times in total. So here, 2 crashes out of memory. So here we've defined a small segment that will get calculated very soon, where we selected all the users who had at least 2 times that specific type of crash in the course of the past 30 days, so on a sliding window in the past 30 days. And this is the population that we will use in our campaign, where we will say, hey, we know that you had the crash, so we will put it in the audience here. We are sorry, but it's now fixed, and you can now leverage your application happily without having the crash. Here, I gave you the example of further communication where we say, here is a coupon or a rebate on your next purchase by sending the user directly to that page. So again, this is a pretty powerful scenario to make sure that since you actually work on your app, correct its issues, correct its crashes, let's just use that and communicate with your users about the great things you are doing for them, and it really can change the way they view your application and the way you can take care of them. So these were some 4 simple but extremely powerful scenarios. Real life, we've seen many customers using them, and it delivers a great value. Then you will be able to go to the next step, even further segmenting your population and invent new ways of improving retention and app usage. But already playing with these 4 scenarios will generate a lot of value. Thank you.